G'day, welcome to iCULTIVATE. My name's Steve and today we're going to be looking at keeping citrus trees in pots. Citrus are usually grown for the purpose of harvesting fruit, but for a range of reasons people sometimes choose to grow them in pots. Those reasons might include such things as just simply not having enough space available. This citrus tree is an example of a lemonade. Another example is a mandarin. And you can see here the juvenile fruit developing. And lastly, an orange. And once again, you can see fruit developing on this tree. Now these trees are able to provide me with fruit for an extensive period of time. And in fact, so much so that I end up harvesting a lot of it, juicing it and freezing it for use later. But if we're going to grow our citrus in pots, we need to understand that we're not going to be able to get as much fruit. But of course sometimes we don't have an alternative. We may be limited to space, for example. So let's look at how we can grow these in pots. The main thing with growing any plant in a pot really is to ensure that you are able to keep water up to them and that they receive the necessary nutrients. The nature of many potting mixes, for example, is that the nutrients will leach from those potting mixes over a period of time, and so you do need to replenish them. This particular citrus is a kaffir lime. Now, kaffir limes are citrus plants that we grow for the foliage, not for the fruit. And in this particular instance, I am growing a kaffir lime in a pot because I'm not after a huge fruit harvest. In fact, I'm not after a fruit harvest at all. It's the foliage that I'm actually after. Now this particular example does look a bit on the ratty side, but that's because I am regularly picking the leaves and using in cooking. I happen to love curries and kaffir lime leaves go well in curries. So when we want to grow our citrus in pots, we have to be mindful of the fact that citrus are surface feeders. So our pot style has to take that into consideration. A tall, skinny pot is not going to provide enough surface at the top for the roots, the feeder roots of the citrus, to be able to access enough area to feed. Because the reality is that down deep in the pot, the citrus is getting minimal benefit from that. It's at this top layer that it's getting the benefit. So this pot on my left, for example, is not the type of pot that you would use for growing a citrus plant. It's tall and it's really quite skinny, not much surface area on the top. This pot here, on the other hand, is not quite as high, and it does have a reasonable surface area at the top for those feeder roots to be able to break out into. So keep in mind when you are selecting your pot for your citrus plant, you don't want it to be tall and skinny. You want it to be broad at the top and not so high. So you can have a look at one of my other videos when it comes to actually getting a plant into a pot. But once you've got your citrus plant in its pot, you need to be mindful of a number of things. Firstly, mulch the top. Make sure that you've got a good mulch there in order to ensure that you have water being retained by the plant as much as possible. Make sure that you fertilise, because as a potted plant, a lot of the nutrients will be lost by leaching over a period of time. The types of fertilising you should consider: you can periodically add a general citrus food, or alternatively consider some of the pelletized manures, chicken manures and things like that. Also ensure that you keep an eye on the condition of the leaves. If you see any discoloration, that is an indication that it is lacking in some nutrient. And lastly, pests. Just because they're in a pot doesn't mean that you have less issues with pests, so keep an eye on them and deal with any pests as they arise. So to summarise, consider the pot shape. Ensure that it has suitable surface area for those feeder roots to be able to access what they need. Make sure that you water regularly. Have a mulch at the top to help with water retention. Fertilise. And lastly, keep an eye on those pests. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Can I ask you to please subscribe to this channel, go down to the thumbs up and give us a thumbs up, and go to our website iCULTIVATE.net and join the community. Thanks for watching.